Hey guys, welcome back. I feel like it's been a really long time since I made one of these videos, and kind of excited to do another one. You know, it's been a little while. So as usual, just scoot this back a little bit. Before we get started, I want to, can you see my hair? Rocky, come here. Rocky. So he just crawled off the couch and onto the floor to sleep some more. So I'll show them off to you. Let me see if I can go find them really quickly. Hold on. There's Maximus asleep as usual. Cozy, cozy. Why are you so dirty? I didn't realize you were so dirty. And then, as usual, sleeping next to my boots is our friend Rocky right here. What you doing, booby? Huh? Okay. Well, that was fun. Yeah, so that's them being their usual selves. They had a really good winter break, just in case you're... Oh my gosh, Rocky just snored so loud. They had a super good winter break, in case you were wondering. They stayed at my parents' house while my husband and I were in Colorado. And my parents have a lot of land, so they were just playing and having a great time out there. All right, so let's jump into it. I'm not there today because I have to drive to San Antonio. My parents are celebrating their 40th anniversary, 40. And we decided, my brother and sister decided they wanted to get together in San Antonio with all our family and celebrate them at a little resort there where my dad can golf and we can go to get massages and eat good food and just basically celebrate my parents' marriage. 40 years is a really long time to be married, so we want to make sure that we celebrate them as best we can and just show them how much we love them and appreciate them. And you know, it's so important to remind your parents how much you do love them, because sometimes we forget how much they do for us. My parents have done everything for me. They've always supported me in everything that I've done, so it's a really great way to show them how much we love them. So, you know, just remember how much your parents do for you. And a lot of times they don't show you everything that they do for you. So you have to remind them that you do love them all the time, because being an adult can be really tough, especially when you have kids. I don't have any kids of my own, but I know that having children is really tough. So just make sure that when you see your parents tonight, you tell them you love them and that you appreciate them. And you know, every once in a while, just pitch in with a chore or something. You know, clean the dishes, pick up your dirty room, or just something that's gonna help them. Okay? Because guys, you have no idea how much they do for you every single day. They love you unconditionally, and they just want the best for you. So it doesn't hurt to help them out every once in a while. Okay? So let's get started. And yesterday, which is technically still today for me, I taught you guys about fractions, dividing a fraction by a whole number and dividing a whole number by a fraction. Those are two completely different things. When the whole number comes first, there's one thing to do. When the fraction comes first, there's a whole nother thing to do. So I've made this handout for you, and it looks like this. And we're going to start with the side that says dividing a whole number by a fraction when the whole number is first. And we're actually going to start with this one. Oh, you can see my one nail that I don't have done. It broke off. I need to get my nails done. I'm just too lazy. Anyway, so we're going to do this one that's 4 divided by 1/2. So before we do that, I just want to remind you of the rule that when you start with a whole number, if the equation starts with a whole number, the answer must also be a whole number. So again, if the equation starts with a 4 is a whole number, then your answer has to be another whole number. It cannot end up being a fraction. So whatever you start with, you have to end with, okay? So just remember this rule. So again, if the equation starts with a whole number, then the answer must also be a whole number. Okay? We're going to start with number 1. Again, that is 4 divided by 1/2, and I've written that right here, nice and big. I've just enlarged it a bit, and again, that is number 1 on your blue paper. So according to your notes, we said that 4 divided by 1/2, the rule is that you need to change your sign to multiplication and flip your fraction. The word that we had for that was reciprocal. Reciprocal means that you are flipping. So if my numerator is normally here, it is now flipped to the bottom. And if my denominator is normally at the bottom, it's going to flip to the top. Whatever those numbers are, they flip, okay? So they just switch spots. So again, we're going to multiply and write the reciprocal of 1/2. Okay. So first I'm going to rewrite this down here just the way we did in our journal so that when I write it across, you can see the change that is happening. Okay, so I just went ahead and I wrote that again right there. So I'm going to draw a little arrow to show you that the equation is changing right now. It's going to change into something else. I'm going to show the changes in my next step. Okay, so we're going to have 4 times, because remember, division has to be the inverse now, and the inverse is multiplication. Remember we say that the opposite of something, we want to use the vocabulary word inverse. That's what inverse means, the opposite. And I'm going to flip that fraction. I'm going to do the reciprocal of 1/2, which is 2/1. Okay, so it should look like that now. Now, this part right here is something that we have seen before because we have done where you multiply the whole number times the numerator right here and then divide by the denominator. So that's what we're going to do. So right now we're going to do 4 times 2. That's going to equal 4 times 2, which is 8. We know that. And it's going to stay over the denominator. So we still have 8/1 there. And we talked about how in class that, yes, this is an improper fraction. However, if I'm dividing anything by the digit 1, I already know that the answer is still going to be 8 because 8 divided by 1 is still 8. So I don't have to actually show the division here. This is basically just showing mental math, knowing that 8 divided by 1 is still going to be 8. So my final answer is 8 here. Okay, just like that. So we went from this to this. As you can see, we started with a whole number, so we had to end with a whole number. Okay, so start with a whole number, end with a whole number. Okay, so our answer for that one is 8. You should be doing your work right here. I just, right up top here, I just did mine on the white paper so you could see it better, and so I had, is bigger for you and bigger for me as well. The next thing we're going to do is apply the answer, which is 8, onto the number line, which is right here. And again, I made my own so that it's bigger. Okay, so this is my number line. So we talked about how the 4 is being divided into half pieces. So this 4 represents a total. Okay, the 4 is my total. I don't have more, I don't have less, I have exactly 4. And that 4 is getting cut up into half pieces. So again, that 4 is my total. So on my number line, I'm going to start at 0 and I'm going to go all the way to 4. And when I'm making my number line, I know that 4 is an even number. So I can cut my number line directly in half down the middle. So I can put 2 right there in the middle. It's easier to do the number lines when the number is even because you can cut right down the middle. That's not always the case, especially when it's an odd number, or when it's an odd number, I should say. But it's not that big of a deal if your spaces aren't exactly perfect. We're just trying to get the general idea. So now I'm going to go back and put in my 1 and my 3. So now my number line should look like this: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, again, 4 is my total. That is why we went from 0 to 4. Now, my denominator here, which is a 2, is telling me how many spaces, not lines, okay? How many spaces I should have between each digit. So for example, between 0 and 1, since my denominator was 2, I'm going to need to make 2 spaces. And to make 2 spaces, I simply have to cut that in half. So one line will give me 2 spaces. Okay, and I'm going to do that in a different color. If I can find my cap here. Oh, right in front of my face. Okay, so in the green, and I'm just doing a different color so that you can see the difference. I'm going to cut that one in half. Okay, so because my denominator was 2, that's why I needed 2 spaces between 0 and 1. 1 and 2. And I'm going to label those just so that you can see that. Okay, so that's 1 and 2. And then I'm going to go through all my other digits and I'm going to do the same thing. Between 1 and 2, I'm going to cut it in half. Between 2 and 3, cut it in half. And between 3 and 4, cut it in half. Okay? So now I have cut all of my digits in half. And if I count all my spaces, I should get an 8. Okay, so starting over here, I can't see very well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, and I'll number those just so you can see again as well that I should have 8 spaces because I cut that 4 into half pieces, and when I do that, it became 8, just like that. Okay. Now, this number line looks very similar to when we're multiplying a fraction and a whole number. But remember, a whole number being multiplied times a fraction is when you see your jumps. There are no jumps on here, okay? This is a division equation. So if we have a division equation, there are no jumps. That's how you can tell the difference between a multiplication number line and a division number line. No jumps on a division number line. You got to remember that. That'll be a really helpful tip later on if you're trying to determine which model goes with which equation later. Okay, again, no jumps on a division equation. Okay, remember that. So there is your answer for numero uno. Again, guys, I know it's been a while, so don't forget that you can pause this video at any time, go back. If I didn't sound, you couldn't understand what I was saying, go back, re-watch it again, and listen to me until it's ingrained in your brain, until you know it. You will most definitely be tested on this, especially on benchmark 2. So it is extremely important that you learn all of these, not just the ones I'm going over today. I don't know why I say it like that. There's the 2 types that I'm going over today, and then the one for multiplication, which is the jumping one. So you have 3 types of models you need to learn. And yeah, you need to know them. You really need to know them. And you need to be able to identify them separately. Okay, that's why we're going to be going over this a lot. All right, número dos. Number 2 does not have an equation on it. However, the number line is completed because what I want us to do is to look at this number line and be able to make the equation from it. So what I did, again, was I enlarged that same number line. And this number line is going from 0 to 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3. And between each digit, there are 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. Believe it or not, this is a complete equation. I should be able to look at this number line and see an equation, just like the way it is. So what I want to notice first is that it's going from 0 to 3. This 3 is going to be cut up into so many pieces. So that tells me that this 3 is my whole number. So the first thing I'm going to write really big, and I like to circle the last 3 just to remind me that, yes, that is my big whole number that I'm going to start with. So I have a big 3. Okay. I'm noticing that there are no jumps on this number line, so that automatically tells me we have to be dividing. Because again, there are no jumps, so I must be dividing. And then the next thing I want to do is I'm going to make a big circle around 0 and 1. And that's all I need to do. Between 0 and 1, I'm just making a circle. Okay? Because that's going to help me decide what is the fraction going to be. And I need to count my spaces. 1, 2, and 3. That tells me that this 3 is getting cut up into thirds. Okay? So I'm going to write 1 over 3. And that is my equation. Now, some people are asking, well, why a 1? Because this is representing 1 out of the 3. So basically, the thing, each space is 1 out of these 3. 1 out of these 3. Also, we talked about how, I talked to you about how my TEK says, when I teach you, my TEK is what I have to teach you. I have to teach you unit fractions. A unit fraction means that I'm teaching you a fraction that only has a 1 as a numerator. So you're never going to see a fraction that says 2/3 or 5/6 or 7/8. It's always going to be 1 over 2 or 1 over 3 or 1 over 4. Always something basic like that, okay? When it comes to matching the model to the equation, you're always going to see a 1 as the numerator. We're either going to make it into a 1 or you're always going to see a 1, okay? So this is my equation. So we're going to go ahead and solve this equation because I also still want to see your work on the paper. So I'm just going to rewrite this again down here so that I don't waste paper. And again, I draw a little arrow, not an equal sign. The arrow tells me that this equation has to change in some way. An equal sign means you're answering it. You're going to give me an answer, a quotient. But right now, we're just changing the equation. So again, we talked about how in class, the division sign needs to be the inverse, which is multiplication. So we're going to change that. And then we're going to flip this fraction. We're going to do the reciprocal here. So what we should have is 3 times 3 over 1. Okay. You can do those steps at the same time. You want to change the sign and flip the fraction at the same time. That way you don't waste a lot of time. Okay. So again, this is something that we've seen before. So I'm going to multiply 3 times 3, and that's going to be over the 1. And you can put an equal sign now because this is an actual answer. So 3 times 3 is 9 over 1. Just like that. And again, I already know that if I divide 9 by 1, it's still going to give me 9. Okay. So 9 is my final answer on that one. So yes, you need to put that on number 2 on your paper as well. Okay, 9 is my final answer. And if I want to check that, I can go back to here and count to make sure I have 9 spaces. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like so. Okay, 9 spaces. And that's it for number 2. All right, let's move on to the back of the paper. So we just did this one, which is the dividing a whole number by a fraction. And right now we're going to do dividing a fraction by a whole number. And I'm going to start with this guy over here, which is number 5. So before we do that, I do want to remind you of the rule. So before, the rule was if it starts with a whole number, it has to end with a whole number. Your answer must be a whole number. When the fraction comes first, if the equation starts with a fraction, then the answer must also be a fraction. Okay, so it flips roles now. If it started with the whole number, it ends with the whole number. It starts with a fraction, it ends with the fraction. Okay. There's a lot of pieces to these things. There's a lot of tips and clues that I like to give you guys. So the more that you can remember and process, the easier it's going to be when you have to match an equation to a model or make a model or something like that. There's so many things that you can remember and use later on. All right, so for number 5, it is 1/2 divided by 5 right here. Okay, so again, I wrote that down nice and big for me and for you. And the rule on this one, when the fraction comes first, is again, we want to change our operation. We want to do our inverse of division, and we know that is multiplication. The inverse of division is multiplication. And then the second step, and at the same time, again, you can do these steps at the same time. Change your sign to multiplication, and then we want to turn 5 into a unit fraction. Again, we talked about how unit means 1. So I'm going to put a 1 on top of my fraction as my numerator. Okay, I'm going to begin. I want a different color. Bleh. I'm tired of green. So again, I'm going to start with 1/2 divided by 5. Again, I'm going to draw my little arrow to show that this equation is changing, not that I have the answer yet. Okay. So we said that we're going to, 1/2 will stay the same. You want that fraction to stay the same because if it starts with a fraction, it needs to end as a fraction. And if I were to change 1/2 into anything else, it would not end as a fraction. So again, 1/2, change the sign from division to multiplication. And then we're going to turn that 5 into a fraction by putting a 1 as our numerator. Okay. And then the last step is to simply multiply straight across. I want to multiply my numerator times my numerator and my denominator times my denominator. And somebody brought up in class today, well, Miss, I thought you said the denominator never changes. This is the exception to that rule. This is the only time when your numerator will not be the same. Okay? You can multiply your numerator, your denominator, going back, denominator can change. This is the only time that can happen. 2 times 5 will give me the 10. So that would be my final answer. And again, this is the only time where you can multiply your denominator times your denominator and you're going to get a different answer. Okay? When it stays the same, that's where you're adding and you're subtracting, and when you're multiplying a fraction. Division rules, division changes that rule. This is the only time that's going to happen. The only time. I repeat, the only time. Okay? So, again, we started with a fraction, and our answer had to end as a fraction. We changed the sign, and we turned our whole number into a fraction as well. So that ended up with 1/10. Okay? Now, let's try that as a model. We're going to make that equation into a model. So I'm going to rewrite that equation at the top so we can remember what it is that we are doing. I don't know what's wrong with me today. I'm like all writing weird. Okay, so again, we have 1/2 divided by 5. So the first thing I need to understand is that 1/2 here is my total. I have 1/2, and that 1/2 is being broken up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. Okay, it's like saying if I had 50 Skittles and I'm gonna divide it, I'm gonna share it between my 5 friends. 50 is my total, right? So in this case, 1/2 is my total. Same thing. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this block in half because I need 2 pieces, okay? And I'm going to shade in one of those. So it's a simple fraction right now. Cut it in half, shade in 1. Okay. And I like to just draw, I'm using a marker, so I'm just going to draw lines. Yours does not have to be exactly like mine. Similar would be nice, but I'm just making it so that you can see quickly, okay? So this 1/2 matches my equation right now. Now, this 1/2, we know dividing means you're breaking something up or cutting something up, needs to be broken up into 5 equal pieces. Again, this is freehand, so are my pieces going to be perfect? No, don't judge me on my 5 pieces, okay? So now I'm going across this way. Before, when I had the 1/2, I was going up and down, but my whole number is going to be going left to right. And I want to make, as much as I can, 5 equal pieces going left to right. Okay, so now it should look something like this. And what I'm going to write here on the side is that I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just to remind me that that's what I was cutting it up into. And if it helps, that's what I just did right now. I cut that up into 5 pieces. And if it helps, I'm going to write a 1 and a 2 at the bottom part to remind me that this line and the shaded represents this 1/2 right here. Okay, now my last and final step on this one is to shade in one of those pieces that I cut into 5. So I'm going to take, usually it's this top one. Sometimes it can be the bottom one on a test. It doesn't matter. Usually I like to do the top one, but like I said, it could be the top, the bottom, whatever the test makers decide to do that day. So I'm going to shade in one of those just really quickly. Okay, so when we did it on paper, we said that our answer should have been 1/10. 1/2 divided by 5 should have equaled 1/10. So if you look here, we overlapped one of them out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Voila, 1 out of 10. It's kind of a weird model, I know, especially for parents and even other teachers. I've had other teachers come and ask me, how does that even make sense? Well, once you understand it and you see it, it makes sense to you. I remember when I first started teaching this, I had no idea what that was, and I had to ask a million people also. So if you're a parent watching this and you're like, what is she doing? Trust me, I was in that same boat like 6 years ago, so don't feel silly if you didn't understand it at first either. It is kind of a weird process, and some of the things that they come up for these kids to understand is crazy. Anyway, moving on, we're going to work on number 6. And on 6, I gave you the model, and the model we're going to make an equation from. Okay, so I went ahead and blew that one up as well. It looks a little bit different, but it is basically the same thing. So this is what number 6 is looking like to you, except mine is in color and a little bit sloppy. So what I did at the bottom was I went ahead and labeled 1, 2, and 3. So pretending that the green part isn't here, we know that this is 1 shaded out of 1, 2, and 3. So that automatically tells me that we started out with 1 out of 3, which is 1/3. Okay? And let me write that on a separate sheet of paper so that when I work it out, we have the space. Actually, yeah, I'm going to do that. So we had 1/3. Okay? So we know for sure that we have 1/3 right here. Now, this 1/3 got cut up into how many pieces? 1 and 2. So if it's getting cut up, we know that's division. So we have 1/3 divided by, so far that's what we have. And again, it got cut up into 2 pieces. It got cut in half. So that is a 2 whole number. So 1/3 divided by 2. That's our equation. So you're going to quickly be able to figure out what the equation is just looking at the model. And you are going to have to be able to do that on the benchmark 2 for sure, like positively. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and solve that equation. So 1/3 divided by 2. Again, I'm going to write it nice down here so I can show you the arrow and everything. Okay. We already talked about how when the fraction comes first, it needs to end with the fraction. So in order to do that, we have to change division to multiplication and then turn this 2 into a fraction by putting a 1 on the top. And I'm going to do those things simultaneously. Simultaneously means at the same time. Okay, so now that's what we have. And then we are simply going to multiply across. Numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator. So 1 times 1 is 1. I hope you answered 1. Somebody answered 2 today. Silly gooses. Y'all know better. And then 3 times 2 is 6. So our answer is 1 out of 6. And if we look at our model, the only one that overlapped twice was 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so that is 1/6 as our final answer on that one. All right, I think that's everything. I did all of those. Okay, so that's it for your lesson, your review lesson basically, because I did all this today, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys know this solidly. We're going to continue to do this. You're eventually going to have to make a word problem that goes with one. We'll do that later on, probably next week. When you are done with this, you need to put it in the basket. Make sure your name is on it. And then you can check to see if your partner is done, the partner for the yellow handout that we stapled together in class and I prepared you for today. Make sure that you guys are not doing, like for example, if it's me and Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm not going to do the first 3 and then she's going to do the bottom 3. I told you that you need to do every other one because I need to make sure that each of you knows how to do each type of equation and be able to match it to the correct model. Let's say this is your piece of construction paper. Do not start gluing down here. You need to make sure you start gluing up here because if you don't, you're going to run out of space down here. And don't put a ton of space in between each one. You want to basically put them right on top of each other on your paper. What else before I let you go? I don't want to forget anything. I think that's it. Just make sure that you box your answers or highlight them. If the substitute, I don't know who the substitute is. It's not somebody that I've had before. So just follow their instructions. You know that if you get in trouble, you're going to have double lunch attention, and I don't want that to happen for you. What else? If the substitute is telling you to do something, just do it. No need in arguing. No need to argue. Just do it. And if it's a big issue, make sure you tell another teacher. That way they can handle it right away. Okay? But usually all the subs we've had are pretty good. Haven't had any issues this school year, so that's awesome. Otherwise, have a great weekend. I will see you on Monday. And guys, we only have about 50 days left until STAR. We talked about how we came in 3rd place out of the district. So woohoo, out of 11 schools. I am so proud of you. But you guys know me, and 3rd place is not good enough for me. You know I need to be, and you need to be at number 1. My goal is to be number 1 this school year, and I know you guys are the ones that are going to get us there, okay? So that means that we're going to buckle down every single day, and we're going to focus, and we're going to try really hard, and we're not going to let somebody else give us the answers because they are not taking the test for us. You have to take the test on your own, okay? But anyway, my little pep talk about STAR. Anyway, STAR is 50 days away, but you guys are going to do great. I already feel it in my heart. I know I'm doing everything I can, so just make sure that you're doing everything that you can. Okay? I love you guys. I cannot wait to see you back on Monday, and let's get everybody back to school on Monday. We need 100% attendance. I know my class and Ms. Fabella's class had really good attendance lately. Ms. Rodriguez's class and Estrada, y'all need to work on it. We cannot be out of school, guys. You really, really need to be here, okay? Super important. With that countdown going, gotta be here. Okay, I know I'm rambling now. Anyway, I love you. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Do smart things. And I will see you soon. You see my baby? Anyway, I just wanted to tell you that if you finish your blue handout before your partner, just sit tight and read a book. And if you finish the yellow paper and the blue paper in class today, get on reflex or read a book. The sub knows that, but I forgot to put it in the video.